I'm calling this meeting to order. This meeting is being held in person in the auditorium of the East End Complex located at 1500 Capitol Avenue for anyone that would like to provide public comment in person. This meeting is also being conducted by way of Zoom meeting for members of the public that would like to participate remotely. In order for this meeting to run efficiently for those participating remotely, please note the following guidelines. All attendees will be muted during the meeting. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom meeting interface. I will call your name at the appropriate time, and OPSC staff will request to unmute you. If you are calling into the meeting and not using a computer or the Zoom link on a mobile device, you will be unable to provide public comment. Ms. Jones, will you please call the roll, noting any members joining us from a remote location?
Certainly. Senator Wilk?
Present.
Senator Laird?
Here.
Senator Newman?
Here.
Assemblymember Marisucci? Assemblymember Davies?
Here.
Assemblymember Alvarez? Juan Morales?
Here.
Jeremy Smith?
Here.
Ana Lasso?
Here.
Chris Ferguson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
There will not be a closed session at today's meeting, therefore we will move on to the agenda. The first item up today is the minutes. Are there any public comments?
Wilk moves.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. I have a motion from Senator Wilk, or Member Wilk, and
Why you just demoted me?
Board Member Wilk.
No, Senator Wilk.
Senator Wilk.
Keep the title for life.
Excellent.
That's why I remember this.
Thank you. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. Senator Wilk?
Aye.
Senator Laird?
Aye.
Excuse me for just a minute. Laird, Wilk, aye. Senator Laird? Laird, aye.
Aye.
Senator Newman?
Aye.
Newman, aye. Assemblymember Davies?
Aye.
Davies, aye. Juan Morales?
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith?
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso?
I wasn't here last month, so I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you. Lasso abstains. Chris Ferguson?
Aye.
Ferguson, aye. And that motion carries.
We'll now turn to the executive officer statement. Ms. Kirk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is a placeholder for the executive officer's statement in the published agenda for today. For record-keeping purposes, we will be providing the written version of the executive officer's statement in the formal agenda in the near future. I wanted to provide the board with an update on the potential for a statewide school facilities bond. We do have 2 education facilities bond bills remaining pending in the legislature currently. However, I would note that Assembly Bill 247 was withdrawn from the Senate Appropriations Committee and re-referred to the Committee on Rules earlier this week. Pursuant to Elections Code Section 9040, the last day for a legislative measure to qualify for the November 5th, 2024 general election would normally be tomorrow, June 27th, 2024. However, I note that Senate President Pro Tempore McGuire was quoted in a news article this week indicating that there is some flexibility to the deadline and that the legislature is currently working with Legislative Council and the Secretary of State toward a July 3rd deadline for placing bond measures on the ballot. Staff continues to monitor any developments, and we will provide further updates as they occur. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, August 28th, 2024, with the time and location to be determined and announced at a later date. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any public comments about the executive officer statement? Any comments from board members? Seeing none, we will move to the consent agenda. Are there any public comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. Senator Wilk.
Aye.
Wilk, aye. Senator Laird.
Aye.
Laird, aye. Senator Newman.
Aye.
Newman, aye. Assemblymember Davies.
Aye.
Davies, aye. Juan Morales.
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso.
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Chris Ferguson.
Aye.
Ferguson, aye. That motion does carry.
Great. We will now turn to financial reports. Ms. Kerr?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have financial reports presented on pages 147 through 164 of today's agenda. Available funds are reflected as of June 26th, 2024, today's date. We're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any comments from board members on the financial reports? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public? With that, we will move to the next item. That is an appeal from the Santa Rita Union School District. The district superintendent, Dr. Melissa Alderman, has joined the meeting via Zoom, and the district's consultants, Mr. Dan Maruccia and Ms. Ariel Percival, are here in person to answer any questions the board may have. Would the district like to provide any comments?
I can go first if you like.
Yeah, sorry. If OPSC could present the item, and then we'll turn to the district for comments.
Thank you. So the appeal for the Santa Rita Union School District is on page 165 of the agenda. This district is requesting the State Allocation Board reinstate funding and approve an additional time extension request to the substantial progress deadlines for a school facility program new construction project. Back in May of 2020, the board approved $4.3 million in advanced site and design funding for the district to get their project started, and funds were released to the district on October 8th, 2020. These funds will allow the district to build a brand-new elementary school serving K through 6th grade down in Salinas. Under Education Code, statute requires the school district to make substantial progress on all SFP projects within 18 months of receiving any funding. If the board makes a finding that the school district has not made substantial progress, the board is required to rescind the apportionment. The SFP regulations require the districts to receive its advanced site funding to demonstrate substantial progress within 18 months, and there's 4 criteria that they must meet. 1 is obtain final site approval. 2, complete all CEQA requirements. 3, obtain final approval of the site by CDE. And 4, obtain final escrow instructions or other documentation that shows the district has entered in condemnation proceedings. There's only one exception to the rule, to those 4 requirements, and that's if the district provides other evidence beyond the district's control, and the board has to approve that finding. And in that instance, the board is basically providing a conditional approval of substantial progress until those 4 requirements are met. Back in March 2022, the district did request that extension. They provided documentation that the board approved in June of 2022 that due to COVID, there was extenuating circumstances beyond the control of the district that delayed the project. The board approved their extension request, which gave them a new deadline of December 6th of 2023. In looking at this appeal, staff took a few things in consideration as they reviewed the circumstances surrounding the project. In looking at the substantial progress deadlines, the regulations do not provide any second exemptions that are spelled out beyond the original other evidence. On the chart on page 169, we've laid out what the district has done so far and what they intend to do by December 6, 2024, which they've requested as their new extension deadline to meet all the requirements for the program. In considering the grants, retaining of the funding for this district, we also looked at the ability for the district to move forward. This funding is intended to buy the site and proceed with the design of the project, but they still need to come in as a financial hardship district to move the project forward with a full grant application after those plans are fully designed. As you're aware, through the May 31st, 2024, the SFP is currently oversubscribed by $3.5 billion in new construction and modernization funding. So we asked the district how they intend to move forward. They provided documentation to show that their estimated construction cost at this time is roughly $33.6 million, but they do have a justification study to level levy two developer fees, and if needed, if there's no new funds to the program, they would trigger level 3 fees potentially. They also propose establishing a community facilities district, and if necessary, also borrow certificates of participation to move the project forward. So they believe they do have a mechanism to keep the project moving forward beyond just buying the site if they're allowed to retain that funding. The other thing we looked at for the district is new construction eligibility. The board currently requires all new construction projects to demonstrate eligibility for their project at the time OPSC processes it. While their application may not be here for about 5 years when we process it, we did look at today's enrollment since the application was first filed in 2019. When the application was first filed in 2019, they had 325 pupil grants. They would need to request 163 at the minimum at the time OPSC processes the application. Today, looking at their eligibility, they would have at least 241 pupil grants, so they do have a viable construction project today to keep moving forward. There are 3 large housing developments going in the city of Salinas that we reviewed. Potentially, if those continue to move forward, adding 343 new dwelling units would bring the district all the way up to 310 pupil grants. And if all 2,200 units go in, potentially 887 grants. So today, we do believe they have a viable new construction project now, provided those projects can continue to move forward. On page 172, just for illustration purposes, see the area the school district's planning to put these sites. It is going to be in the west area specific plan on the top chart there. So in conclusion, in discussing with the district and purchasing the site, it does make sense to staff prior to the infill of development that buying the site now is logical before the houses go in, so you don't have to buy property outside those residential areas. It does appear from the district that it would have considerable delays over the last 4 years with ongoing litigation with the city of Salinas, which concluded just shortly before their deadline. We would note that if the district does buy the site and doesn't move forward with it, they would be subject to an unused site fee equal to 1% of the appraised value of the site annually until they actually use it as a school. And that's if they don't use a school within the first 5 years. Staff is unable to administratively approve the district's request. Under the regulations, there is not a mechanism to provide a second request, but we believe that the regs may not have contemplated the extenuating circumstances faced by the district for their project. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Before we take questions, if we could hear from the district or its representatives, if they'd like to make any comments.
So just a quick word of introduction. My name is Daniel Maruccia. I'm a partner at Lozano Smith and representing the Santa Rita Union School District. I'd like to have the superintendent, Dr. Melissa Alderman, address the board very briefly, and myself and Ms. Percival are here to answer any questions that the board may have as well. Dr. Alderman?
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate the members of the board considering our request, and I want to thank you for that. And I also really want to thank OPSC staff, especially Michael Watanabe and his team for their time and their effort and willingness to kind of work with us through the appeal process, answer all of my questions that I had along the way. The summary that was given to you is really comprehensive of where we're at. I can give you a couple of updates just in the past couple of days. We're expecting final close of our escrow by the end of next week. And we needed to go ahead and move on purchasing the school site. As was shared with you prior, we have our plan in place for if there are, funding, shortfalls when it comes time to do school construction. We're willing to explore all of the avenues that are available to us. We're confident in saying that we'll be through this entire process with the remaining requirements by December.
Thank you. Any questions from the members? Seeing none, are there any motions?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. This is John Laird, and this school district is generally in my region, and I think to say something that just wasn't said as directly at the staff level, there is no staff ability to approve this. This has to come to us, and it is very reasonable the way it was explained, they've just done everything they can do. They're generating more revenue for this, and they've moved it ahead as far as they can, given the exigent circumstances. And it makes a lot of sense to approve this. And so I don't know what the appropriate motion is. Is it that we uphold the appeal? Is that the appropriate motion?
Yes, that would be to approve the district's appeal request.
Then I would move that we approve the district's appeal request.
Wilk seconds.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Secretary, actually, sorry, before we call the roll, just to verify, is there any additional public comment on this item? Ms. Secretary, if you would call the roll.
Certainly. Senator Wilk.
Aye.
Wilk, aye. Senator Laird.
Aye.
Laird, aye. Senator Newman. Newman, aye. Assemblymember Davies.
Aye.
Davies, aye. Juan Morales.
Aye.
Morales, aye. Jeremy Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Ana Lasso.
Aye.
Lasso, aye. Chris Ferguson.
Aye.
Ferguson, aye, and that motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Great. We'll move to the final item, which is just a general item about reports, discussions, and informational items. With that, we'll consider them read. Are there any additional public comments from any members of the public? With that, I will adjourn the meeting.